Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. I see a bunch of people are already signing in. We're starting in about 3.5 minutes. So to allow everybody to sign in time, we've got about 50 odd people attending today. Let's leave it that 2.5 minutes. Could somebody please just send me a note saying that you can hear me? I'm pretty sure you can, but I want to confirm that. Yeah, great. Thanks, Amy. That's good. Okay, well, let's leave it another 2 minutes and then we'll kick off. It seems to me like it's too good a day to be inside doing webinars. We should all be outside feeling the warmth, but nonetheless, I'll try to make this as entertaining as I possibly can. And informative, of course. Numbers building slowly. About 60 seconds to go and then we'll kick off. Thanks for your patience, everyone, but we need to make sure that everyone signs in and can participate. The clock always seems to go slow when you're watching it. Well, I think we should get ready to get going now. So welcome along to today's webinar. This should go for between 30 and 40 minutes, probably closer to 40. I have a habit of talking far too much. If I am, with the comments column is on the side, just tell me to stop bleating on, and I will. If you've got any questions, you can also slot those into the comments column on the side. I think you'll see in the bottom of your screen it says chat. You can use that little area there to ask questions or make statements or tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Today's topic is ensuring community support for increased charges and other tough decisions. It's an issue that I'm quite passionate about, and that'll probably come out in the course of the presentation. Today's webinar is sponsored by me, which is unsurprising, DQ Australia, and I'd urge you to go to their website and have a look. They're a pretty forward-thinking organisation, and of course your very own local government professionals who have been very helpful in sponsoring all of these events during the course of this year. My name's John Carlson. My background's in psychology, education and business. I specialise in consumer behaviour and marketing strategy. I'm a company director and marketing advisor, and I've worked with in the private and public sectors for 25 years, including with local governments right across the country. And it's a sector I really enjoy talking with and working with. Just a bit more of an insight into me. I have very little interest in sport, but sport is more than entertainment or athleticism. Sport is about belonging and connecting. and a way that, in a way, that delivers harmony and solidarity. And I'm going to use a lot of sporting examples during the course of this webinar today, because I think sport does go to that sense of belonging and connection that puts people on the same page and gets them moving together as one unit with one view of the world. But don't take it in any way as a reflection of my interest in sport, because I have absolutely none. There are 5 premises which underpin today's webinar. 2. And the first one is that sometimes charges need to increase. I guess I don't need to tell you that, or anybody else for that matter. Sometimes we need to increase our prices. That's life. The second is that sometimes local governments, like any organisation, need to make hard decisions. That's a fact of life. No one wants to pay more. Even people who have the means to pay more or the preparedness to pay more don't want to pay more. Everybody is resistant to paying more. And no one likes decisions that disadvantage them. That's, again, just a fact of life. And they'll always provide reasons why those decisions shouldn't be made. And most of those reasons will, of course, be self-serving. But everyone wins when there is community support. If everyone in the group you're communicating with or are a member of or are working with, if they all support what you're doing, then you can overcome their negative feelings towards price increases or decisions that disadvantage them. Nobody likes paying more or decisions that disadvantage them, but they will accept paying more and they will accept decisions that disadvantage them if they are for a cause, for a mission, a vision, a goal that they all embrace. If people are on the same page, then they will accept paying more. Community support delivers less disruption, greater cooperation, smoother functioning of the organisation concerned, in this case the local government, better satisfaction results in surveys and the like, and lower costs. It is cheaper to communicate and to work with people that support you. There is a lot of good reasons why local government should seek community support. Certainly you can go about what you're doing without it, and certainly you can increase charges whether the community supports it or not. But there are a lot of really tangible advantages, particularly in terms of time and cost, if the community supports what you're doing. And I'm not suggesting that you should modify your decisions to compensate for community objection, but I am suggesting that there are a way of developing relationships within your community which reduces the likelihood of the community getting upset, reduces the likelihood of disruption, increases the likelihood of cooperation, even if they don't like the decision, allows you to function smoother, improves satisfaction results, and reduce costs. It takes you from this kind of scenario to this kind of scenario. And that's what we're going to talk about today. From this to this, people pulling in the same direction. So today, what I want to talk about more specifically is replacing your community with a tribe. To start, I'd like to tell you a story about Tokyo and Japan. The population of Tokyo, that's one city, in 2020 is 37,393,000, or 37 odd million people. And they've had 2 homicides last year. In one of the biggest cities in the world, they had 2 homicides. If you compare that to New York, for example, where they had 1,200 homicides in the CBD alone. And it's not just because of guns. But Japan has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, crime rate in the world. And there are 2 very good reasons for that. There may be other ancillary reasons, but there are 2 core reasons. The first is that even children have wisdom. And the second one is that tribalism is a critical motivator in Japan and indeed in China and some other Asian countries. What I mean when I say that children have wisdom, there's a test of wisdom devised at Stanford University that tests how wise an individual is, and that's based on a test of intellectual humility. Am I able to accept that I don't know everything, that there are other people that know a lot more than me, particularly on specific subjects? And they tested 12-year-olds in the United States, 12-year-old in Europe, 12-year-olds in Britain, 12-year-olds in Japan, and 12-year-olds in China. And they tested 70-year-olds in all of those markets. And what they found is that the 70-year-olds, regardless of country of origin, had similar levels of intellectual humility and similar levels of wisdom. What they found with the children, however, is that children in the Asian countries, particularly Japan and China, had significantly higher levels of intellectual humility, in significantly higher levels of wisdom. And if anybody's interested, I'll send you the references on this where there's more detail on what they mean by wisdom. Significantly higher amongst Asian countries than amongst European, British, or American communities. And they put this down to a number of factors. The first factor is that in most of those countries, there's no concept of I. They are, in the truest sense, a community. People live for their community. They live to be part of their community. And secondly, tribalism, that's taking community one step further, is a critical motivator in Japan and China. People want to save face. People want to look good in the eyes of their family, in the eyes of their community. They want to share values. They want to have a shared vision. They want to have a shared mission. And what that leads to is much better community behaviour. And it's not just in terms of homicide. It's in terms of all kinds of disruptive behaviour, crime generally, social issues, homelessness, a whole range of issues. Because people are on the same page, because they believe in their tribe, their community, they're prepared to stick together and work together, and they're far less acrimonious and far less likely to commit acts of crime, particularly homicide. I mean, 2 in 37 million is a staggering number in 12 months. Of course, the other example in Japan of the belief in community is the kamikaze pilots. These were men who trained to become great pilots so they could kill themselves in support of their country. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody should behave like this or that there's any merit in killing oneself. But what I am suggesting is these people put their community, their tribe, a long way ahead of their personal interest, a long way ahead of what they were going to get out of life personally. In other words, they were not only inclined to criticise their government for going to war, they were prepared, in fact, they planned to die for that. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should build that level of tribalism, but I am suggesting, firstly, that that level of tribalism can be created. And secondly, you can build a less extreme form of tribalism within your community quite easily. I think this is an unfortunate but significant example. So let's start our talk today by talking about replacing community. People talk a lot about the importance of community, and depending what you mean by community, I'm going to present the case now for replacing the concept of community. I want to step back in time and replace the concept of community with the concept of tribe. And they're very different concepts. A community is a group of people living in the same area. All the people in your local government area are a community. That is your community. That's the community that you serve. That's the community you lead. That's the community that follows you. That's the community that has to live with you by your rules, etc. A tribe, on the other hand, is a social division consisting of families or communities linked by social, economic, religious or blood ties with a common culture and dialect, typically having a recognised leader. A tribe is much more connected than a community. A tribe extends well beyond the concept of geography. And when you think about it, there's no reason why people living in the same geographical area should have a common view of the world, should have common aspirations, should have common needs, or should have common views on just about anything. Geography is a man-made concept. The boundaries around a local government are a man-made concept. They're not a natural concept. The people aren't really that different to people who live outside of that geographic area. But in terms of when they become a tribe, they are very different. And we'll go through some of that. So the features. A community is generally defined by locality. A tribe is defined by shared values. They believe in the same things. A community, it has a shared circumstance. A tribe has a shared vision, a shared view of what life could become, what could be created in their tribal area. A community is naturally evolving. People move in and out of the area. A tribe can be naturally evolving, but it can also be created, and it is not bound by a geographic area necessarily. A community can have or not have icons and traditions. A tribe inevitably is connected by icons and traditions. A community can be with or without a clear leader. People can live in the area without considering anyone a leader. A tribe is inspired by a leader. So we go from loyalty to values, locality to values, what I believed in, circumstances to vision, what I want to see in my area, naturally evolving to created by the local government in this case, without icons and traditions to being with icons and traditions, and without a clear leader to being inspired by a leader, and with that leader being the local government. So we go from a community, perhaps looking like this at an event, where there is limited identification with other members. Those people in that photograph I just showed you may have all lived in the same area. They may even know each other to wave, but there's limited identification with each other. They don't consider themselves part of the same tribe. There's limited engagement with common goals. They probably don't have common goals. They're all going about their own thing, doing their own thing in their own way. There is a limited passion for a common agenda, if indeed there is a common agenda. And there's limited support for leaders. Those people in that park had no support for it. They didn't consider themselves to have any leaders. They were just people going to a community event in their local government area. They were a collection of individuals, or a collection of smaller groups, families, which in themselves are tribes, but they're just a collection of individuals whose only connection is that they might live in the same area and happen to turn up to the same event one day. Then we consider this, the first of my sporting analogies. This is a tribe, and it's distinctly different in so many ways. It is a high level of identification with other members. All those people there identified with each other. And in fact, they chose to sit with each other rather than people dressed in other colours on the other side of the ground, because they identify with each other. All of those people have a high level of engagement and very clear community goals. There's a very clear thing they want to achieve, a grand final or a win today or whatever the case might be. They have a high level of passion. They know what the agenda is. The agenda is to win today and win next week and coordinate things so they keep on winning and eventually walk away with a grand final, which I understand is this week, although that team's not playing, I think. They have a high level of support for the leaders. I mean, I can't imagine what would make anybody want to support Eddie Maguire. But these people do. These people support him actively. They support the captain of the team, who I don't know who is, actively. They are part of a tribe. And whatever the leaders do, they will largely accept because it was a member of their tribe that did it. And they are cohesive. They are a cohesive group with common aspirations. They want the same things. Now, you might suggest, oh, yeah, look, sport's very different to local government. But is it? The activity is very different. But is the issue of tribalism that different? And I suspect and I hope by the end of this webinar, you'll come to the view that they're probably not a lot different. So the Collingwood Football Club increases its fees regularly and often makes decisions, hard decisions, but members remain at capacity. The members keep coming to the ground to watch the game. The members keep joining even when the fees go up. There's a waiting list to join that and many of the other football clubs in Australia. And the fees go up and the waiting list stays pretty much the same. They don't like the fees going up, but because they feel they identify with the group, they will keep on pushing. They will keep on becoming part of it because they identify the group. Even if they're not a member, they'll turn up to games and sit with the group. Secondly, Collingwood supporters are bound by more than geography, even though they may come from geographic areas, and I'm not sure how much that's true now anyway, but they're not bound by a geography. They are bound by a common mission, a common vision, and common values, together with smoking. I went to one of my few football games. I went to a game between Collingwood and the Fremantle Dockers at the MCG when I had an office in Melbourne and spent a lot of time there. And I'd never seen more people standing outside the ground smoking in one place ever before in my life and ever since. And when you go into the ground, both sides are ready to kill the umpire whenever he did something they didn't agree with. They were bound together as a tribe, and they would defend members of their tribe, the players, against anyone at any time because they had shared mission, shared vision, and shared values. And one of the critical words that I just used then was shared, and we'll come back to that. Tribes in a local government area, members will occur when members embrace the big picture, where there's a shared vision. That is, we all have a common view of what we're trying to create in this region. Members stick together because there are shared values. We all believe in roughly the same thing. And members understand what the local government's doing because they trust it. And why do they trust it? Because there's shared vision and shared values and a shared mission. And members support the leaders, the local government, because they consider themselves walking together towards shared values, a shared vision with a shared mission. And this word shared is really important because what most organisations do, whether it be local government, state government, federal government, businesses like mine or any other, is that the board or the leaders of the organisation tend to document the vision, tend to document the values, tend to document the mission with little or just superficial consultation with the audience they're trying to address. And that's absurd. You can't share a vision if you didn't create that vision in a shared manner. You can't share values if you didn't create those values in a shared manner. And you can't share a mission if you didn't create that mission in a cooperative or collaborative or co-creative manner. It is absurd to tell an audience what the mission is, what the vision is, or what the values is. What you need to do is work with them to find common ground that they automatically buy into. They say, yes, that's what I want. Yes, that's what I want to be a part of. Yes, that's what I believe. And surprisingly enough, when you do it on a co-creative basis, when you work with them to do it, you'll end up with a vision, a mission and values that you feel quite comfortable with, almost always. And you'll end up with a vision, mission and values they feel quite comfortable with. And then you'll start to move in the same direction, just like a football club does. So let's talk about the second and more substantive part of this webinar today, which is creating a tribe. There are a number of critical issues in creating a tribe. Firstly, you need to identify the insiders and the outsiders. If you're going to have a tribe, there must be people who are in the tribe and people who are not in the tribe. Secondly, you must establish a common mission. What are we in the business of doing? Thirdly, you must establish a common vision. What are we trying to create? Thirdly, you need to define common values. What do we all stand for? What do we believe in? What do we care about? Fifth, you must create a culture that supports the values. This is a critically important one for local government, state and federal government, and private organisations, all organisations. So many of them set values, say these are our values, but don't behave in a manner consistent with those values. And if your behaviour or your culture is not consistent with your values, then you don't have those values. You don't really live them. They're just words on a piece of paper. And if they're just words on a piece of paper, the community will not engage with you and will not support you. You need to live those values. You need to demonstrate that you're working towards the vision, and you need to demonstrate that you've embraced the mission. Next, you must identify and leverage icons and traditions, and we'll talk about that in some detail. But all great tribes, all tribes, have icons and traditions. I mean, the scarves and the jumpers and the banners that the Collingwood supporters I just showed you then, they're part of their icons and traditions. And you've got to create a platform for engagement. You can't create a tribe unless people can engage with each other freely and continually on an ongoing basis. You need to provide that platform for engagement. And that doesn't mean the occasional event. That might help, and that adds impetus to communication, but you need to provide a platform that they can engage on, as engage with you and engage with each other. So let's go through those points, 8 points or whatever it was, one by one. Identify insiders and outsiders. Tribes have a defined membership, and you need to decide who is in your tribe and who is not in your tribe. And people need to be able to identify immediately who's in my tribe and who's not in my tribe, who to identify with and who do I not identify with so much. Ideally, that definition would be based on common needs, aspirations ahead of geography. Geography is not something that will bring people together very strongly. It can do, but it generally doesn't, particularly at the local government level. It's common needs and aspirations. The reason that Mark McGowan's been able to have his hard border is that he's created a tribe of people who have a common ambition to do the right thing by their state, to keep their state healthy, to work together to revive our economy. And whilst you might argue the rights and wrongs of that, and I don't know whether it's right or wrong, he's created a tribe. There is 80%, 79% of Western Australians are on side with that decision. This is a tribe of people who are saying, we are going to defend ourselves against everybody outside. And every time somebody in the other 21% stands up and says, this is not right, they're howled down, not just by the 79%, but also by the media. So tribes have insiders and outsiders. Here's a tribe with insiders and outsiders. They have members all over the world. unlike Collingwood, it's not principally in one country. It's right across the world. 500,000 members right across the world. So geography is entirely irrelevant. A song is relevant, the song they play at every game. And if you've ever seen that, they sing together. That song holds them together. And the words of that song articulate a vision, a mission, and values that they engage with. These people are more than football supporters. They are a tribe. They will, as the song suggests, stand behind each other, stand with each other, no matter what. And as somebody whose girlfriend is a mad Liverpool supporter, I can testify to just how strong that tribe is. And they'll hear nothing bad said about their football club, but they'll say everything bad about every other football club until one of the other football club's members represents them, changes teams, or another tribe they're a part of, the English tribe or whatever the case might be. But this is an example of a tribe that has very clear who's in and who's out. The reality is almost every one of those people there know the song. Okay. The second thing is they've got to establish a common mission. Nothing brings people together like a common mission or purpose. There's a lot of talk about purpose these days, and with good reason. You give people a common purpose and they will work together. They will have their differences, they will debate their differences, but they will work together. The mission of a local government and its community might relate to the quality or style of life that people want to live. But there's a clear mission that needs to bind people together. And in my view, one of the things that demonstrates that best was the bond that soldiers had during the First, Second World War, and indeed subsequent wars. I heard an Aboriginal fellow that had fought in the Second World War say in an interview that the only time in his life he didn't experience racism was when he was in the army. There was no sense of racism whatsoever. He said, I've heard others say the same thing, because they had a common mission. And that common mission was to win whatever fight they were going to win and get back alive. And they were prepared to do anything for each other to make sure that occurred. These two men may not have been friends in the community, and certainly at the time when racism was even worse than it is now, they may not have been friends. But in the army, they weren't black and white. They were just soldiers fighting for their country and trying to survive. That's what a mission is about. Bringing people together with something bigger than their petty prejudices, something bigger than their concerns about rate notices, something bigger than their concerns about whether a bike path is built or not. Then you need to establish a common vision. It is important to paint a common view of the future so that members can follow you on your journey towards that vision. People will do anything if they can see the vision ahead of them. People in the desert will do anything to get to that oasis. And in life, we will all do just about anything to get to that oasis. But I have seen very few local governments, very few state governments, very few federal governments, and very few organised businesses that paint a clear vision. Some of the exceptions are Apple, Google, Microsoft, and they attract, as a result of that vision, they attract the best people, they retain the best people, they attract loyal customers, and people are absolutely on board with it. But it gives everybody somewhere to go. It gives them a direction to follow. The only vision that works, however, is one that is aligned with the aspirations of the leader, the local government, and the members. If you tell the members what the vision of the local government is, you will never build a tribe. If you work with them to agree on one, you will quickly build a tribe. And this guy did it. Now, I am not going to get into a political debate about the merits of Donald Trump, other than to say I don't think he has any merits. But he built a tribe. He built a group of people who thought that America had collapsed into a mess and that he was going to make it great again. He gave them a vision. He gave them a vision of a greater country where they would all have jobs, where manufacturing would come back from China, which it probably never will, but he created that vision, where unemployment would go to zero, which it probably never will, but he created that vision. And as a result, he won an election he probably shouldn't have won. And he ended up running a country that he probably shouldn't have run. But he did it by getting 40% of voters, or 46% of voters, or whatever it was, to believe that making America great again was achievable, was something that they could work towards. And when you think about it, why wouldn't they want to make their country great? Of course, the underlying message is there that the country isn't great at that point and can be made and needs to be made great again. But this was a vision that people bought into, and 40% of Americans still buy into it. 40% of Americans still think he's doing the right thing. And about 30% of Americans think that he's the Son of God because he gave them a vision that they wanted to be part of. And of course, a number of people have been disappointed by his performance, feeling he didn't realise that vision. And that will happen too. People will fall away if you don't bring the vision to life. He didn't make America great again, he hasn't yet. And people have fallen away as a result of it, and he'll probably lose in 2020, although we'll see. But the reality is he created a vision, and because he did it enthusiastically and because he listened to the people before he did it, they got on board with it. They elected a man that most people in the United States and just about everyone in this country would say was unelectable. Then you've got to establish common values. A tribe cannot be created without common values, and values are simply what we believe in. And it's something that all members of the tribe can engage with. And increasingly what we're finding in marketing now is that people buy values ahead of a product. They buy the values of Apple ahead of the iPhone. They buy the values of the organisations they deal with ahead of the products that those organisations sell. And there's a lot of research to show that people only come together when they have the same or similar core beliefs. And those core beliefs cannot be developed independently. They need to be developed by a group working together. And again, I'll use that word, co-creation. You've got to co-create your vision, co-create your mission, and co-create your values. And if you do, you'll have taken the three biggest steps towards creating a tribe. Now, this guy, not the actor, but the part he played in Braveheart, was at this point in the movie, he was looking back at these people, telling them that they were probably going to die in this battle, but would they rather face that end now or live as subjects of Britain into the future? How important was their freedom to them? And he knew that they valued that freedom, or their perception of it, so much so they would be prepared to die for it, to fight against impossible odds. And as you probably know, he was the only person that ever successfully invaded England since William the Conqueror. He invaded England, got not down to London, but very, very close to London from Scotland, and was only overthrown in the end because one of his own side put him in and turned him over to the English. But at the promise of great wealth, or whatever the case might have been. But he got a minority of people to follow him, for many of them into certain death, because they shared values. They believed that they should be free. They believed that they shouldn't be ruled by Britain. And the people of Scotland, as far as I can see, still believe that, or at least 50% of them seem to still believe that. But he didn't tell them, this is what you're going to believe. He spoke to them, he talked to them, he listened to them and found out what they believed and then built his war around it. The next point is to create a culture that supports those values. As I said a while ago, there is no point in having values you don't live. Have you ever seen the advertising for Myer, which tells you how wonderful Myer is? And then you go in and you get bad service, average products, poor displays, and average pricing. They don't live their values. They tell you their values are service, quality, pricing, all of those things, and they don't live them. And what happens then? Their credibility is completely dashed. And you tell somebody that one of your values, for example, is putting the customer first, and then they come to your reception and somebody treats them harshly or ignores them or tells them to sit there for 20 minutes while somebody who's too busy to deal with them sorts out an issue and eventually comes back to them. What that says to them is this organisation may have a list of values, but they don't live those values. When a council worker is rude to somebody, which may or may not happen, but I assume it does occasionally, then they're not living the values. And if they don't live the values don't exist. There's an old adage that I tell my clients, particularly in the corporate sector: if you have to list your values on your website, you don't have any. Because your values should be evident from the behaviour of your people. If you have to tell people you've got integrity, what it says to me is that those that deal with you don't see that integrity. If you have to tell people that you're friendly, what it says to me is your people don't illustrate that friendship. Your values should be illustrated in everything you do. Leaders, and that's particularly so of leaders must walk the talk. And if there's one thing about branding or about tribe building that organisations in Australia, regardless of the type of organisation, have, is that they don't walk the talk. They spend all of this time developing values, put them in their website, put them in their annual reports, even put them on communication and promotion. And nobody believes it because they didn't live it, they don't live it, nobody before them lived it, and nobody else lives it. If you're going to have a value, you've got to create a culture that lives it. This guy's name is Tony Shea. He started running a business called Zappos, which is the biggest shoe store in the world, online shoe store. When he took over, it had a turnover of $1.2 million, relatively small business in the United States. He sold it 10 years later for $1.6 billion, that is, to Amazon. And they asked him, what was the secret? This is what he said: our number one priority is company culture. Our whole belief is that if we get the culture right, most of the other stuff, like delivering great customer service or building a long-term enduring brand, will just happen naturally on its own. You develop a vision, a mission, and values with the community, and then ensure that each and every person within your organisation lives them, that each and every ad you place reflects them, that each and every website reflects them, that each and every annual report reflects them, that each and every press release reflects them, then you will be starting to build a community. It's not about spending a lot of money building a brand or a community. It's about developing a great culture, and you already employ the people, so you may as well put some effort into building that culture. The third point is identify icons and traditions, things that people can identify with the tribe. Tribes have icons, they have symbols, they have traditions that remind them of their membership. These might include landmarks, colours, events that bring people together. Apple have product launches 2 or 3 times a year, and this is what you see outside an Apple store when there's a product launch. It is a tradition for members of the Apple community to line up. They start lining up 2 or 3 days beforehand to be one of the first to go and buy the new iPhone. That's despite the fact that it's available online, and it will take a day or 2 longer to get there. But no, that's not the tradition. The tradition is not to buy it online. The tradition is to get in the line. And the same as it is for the grand final. I've seen people interviewed in Melbourne who have their collapsible chair. They sit outside the grand final waiting to go, or the grandstand, wanting to buy their tickets. And they've been doing it every year for the last 25. It's a tradition, just like the lunch on grand final day, the breakfast, and the presentation of awards are all traditions that bring people together. No organisation has more icons and traditions than the Catholic Church. Other churches are not a lot dissimilar, but the Catholic Church, to me, stands out in terms of its icons and traditions. All of these things that bind their members together. And to show how effective that's been, despite all of the criticism, despite all of the crimes that priests have been convicted of, despite things like pedophilia, despite the Inquisition, despite their approach to condom use in Africa, when AIDS was everywhere. Their band stays with them, stays absolutely with them, because they have a common vision, a vision of heaven, a common mission to get there, common values, their 10 commandments, and other things along with that, and common icons and tradition, their churches, their crucifix, their outfits, their popes, their cardinals, their priests, the whole thing, the design of their churches. These are all things that hold the tribe together and make the tribe strong against even the most aggressive contemporaries, including the media, politicians, other religions, or whatever else. It even makes some people so strong that they will die for that religion. Now, I don't have a great deal of time for religion, but I have a great deal of time for what this teaches us about building a tribe. So it's not just in sport, it's also in war with soldiers, they build tribes. It's also in religion with congregations, they build tribes. And local governments can do exactly the same thing. The next point is to create a platform for engagement, a place where people who are members of this tribe can build their relationship with the tribe, can build their relationship with each other, can communicate with each other. Members of a tribe communicate with each other and not just with the leader. Now, I know that local governments often survey their communities, often have focus groups, and lots of things that have events to communicate with the community. But does it also encourage the community to communicate with each other? And that's a critical element of a tribe. A tribe needs to have an environment or a platform where members of the community, members of the tribe, can not just communicate with the leader, but communicate with each other. In 2020, best practice involves establishing a platform that facilitates communication, not just between tribe members and the leader, but between tribe members and each other. And a great example of that was Harley-Davidson. In the 1990s, Harley-Davidson was dead. It was gone for all money. And they did a bit of rebranding, and they tidied up the design of their bikes, and they did a few things that helped them. But what really helped them was they built an online community. They built a community with common values, a common vision to make the Harley great again, a common mission to be identified with Harley-Davidson ownership. They not only resurrected the business, but it is now certainly the most successful motorbike company in the world and one of the most successful automotive companies in the world. And if you read all the literature on the resurrection of, no pun intended with the last slide, with the resurrection of Harley-Davidson, it was all about the community. Members being able to communicate with each other and share ideas about the bike and share experiences with the bike and share thoughts on which of the models is better and which one has better fuel consumption. And generally for the community to build itself into a tribe. There's some amazing case studies, and if anybody's interested, I'm happy to email you one. An online community offers the cheapest road to bringing the community together with the local government into a tribe. An online community option, you can build an online tribe in social media. You can use Facebook to build an online tribe, perhaps not Instagram or Twitter or although Twitter can be used as part of it, or LinkedIn, but certainly you can use Facebook to build or to provide a platform for the ongoing, for the building of a tribe. And it just amazes me that local governments don't embrace social media more aggressively in this country. It is perhaps the strongest tool that local government can use to get the community on side. They worry all the time about the criticism. The criticism's happening anyway. People are putting on their own Facebook pages, on each other's Facebook pages. The criticism's happening. You just don't know about it because you don't have anywhere for it to be said, to be expressed. But increasingly, the trend is towards standalone, including bespoke platforms, because they're not very expensive now, where you build your own platform to facilitate communication. Platforms that become a portal for the community, much more than a website. Certainly an avenue for local government to communicate with the community, but an avenue for the community to talk with each other, to share thoughts, to share ideas, to share upcoming events, to share concerns, share issues, to discuss things of interest. A place, a meeting place where the whole community can come together and feel safe and feel part of a tribe. It's a community that brings together local retailer, local government, local charities, local services, and local clubs. And the best thing about it, 99% of the content is user-generated and therefore involves no effort on the part of the local government. You need to set it up, you need to get it going, but once it's going, other than a bit of moderation, it gets a life of its own and it takes over and runs itself, and the community builds itself, so long as you have that shared mission, vision, and those shared values. The content, what sort of content would local government put on those communities? Well, there are 6 things that people in our community are desperate for. The first one is certainty. We all want to know that our car will start in the morning, that we'll still have a job in the morning, that our spouses will be home when we get home at night. We want that certainty. So any content that builds certainty, particularly in the capacity of the local government to deliver on the vision and values, is well supported. Sorry about the outside noise. I don't know quite what's going on. I'm in the centre of the CBD. The second thing they want is variety. They want different things and different ideas and different experiences. The third thing is they want to feel important. Everybody wants to feel important. How do you feel when you go into Maya and you go up to a counter you've been up to before? Nobody, the person who's even served you before, and they don't recognise you. They don't even call you by name, despite the fact you've given them your credit card, and they treat you like nothing more or less than a courier for a credit card. In fact, they're doing business with your credit card, not with you. You feel insignificant. And do you feel like going back again? No, you don't. So on those platforms, people can be identified in the way they are on Facebook, with a little avatar of themselves with their name underneath it, and then you can identify who you're talking to, and it makes them feel like they're important. And when you respond, it makes them feel like they've been heard. And people who are heard don't complain very often. It's people who feel they're not heard that complain all the time. People want to be connected. And an online platform allows people to connect with each other. It makes them feel part of the tribe. And certainly these online communities are a huge issue for the likes of Liverpool Football Club and Manchester United, for example, has a massive online community for its 650,000 members. We all want to grow. We all want to think we're bigger today than we were yesterday. Perhaps richer, perhaps smarter, perhaps happier, perhaps more in love. I don't know what. But you need to provide content that facilitates personal growth. And we all want to make a contribution. So you incorporate charities so they can donate, or a money or a book or whatever it else, or their time. If you address these 6 basic human needs on your community, and everything about them is consistent with that shared value, visions and mission, you will build a tribe. 6 or 8 months down the track, you will have a tribe. The added benefits of an online community, it produces so much data for you to make decisions, and your investment in market research will fall away because you'll have live, real data in front of you. The community creates connection. It allows you to communicate with a wide number of people at little or no cost. And finally, it reduces significantly the cost of communication. In summary, forget about community and build a tribe that will work with you through good times and bad to achieve a shared vision, shared mission, and shared values. If you want to know more about tribes, this book will take you about 3 or 4 hours to read, if that. It's a great book written by this guy, Seth Godin, who talks a lot about the issue of building tribes and sees that as the contemporary form of communication. In fact, he advocates that as the centerpiece of communication in the 2020s. And he says this: a tribe is a group of people connected to one another, connected to a leader, and connected to an idea, that is the vision or the mission. For millions of years, human beings have been part of one tribe or another. Build a tribe and they will jump off a cliff with you. Now, in closing, I'm more than happy to discuss any of these issues raised during this webinar or indeed any of the webinars in this series. So if you feel inclined, give me a call or send me an email. I'm happy to come. This is a subject I feel very, very passionate about, as you may have told from the way I've presented it. If you'd like me to come and talk to your local government, I'm happy to do that without fee. I just think it's something that can transform local government, transform business, and transform other levels of business. This whole idea of building tribes rather than communities. The 2021 webinar series will be out in January 2021. And I'd really like to see you at webinars during the course. Well, I don't see you at all. You see me, but I don't see you through the course of the year. So please look out for that. If you'd like more information on this issue or any others, you can visit my website, and that's the address there, www.johncarlson.esq.com. Again, I'd say this event was sponsored by me, of course. DQ Australia, do visit their site, dqaustralia.com.au, and also, of course, by very helpful, very supportive local government professionals. And thanks to Candy and Beck and the team out there for their help. And thanks to you again for your support of this webinar and others during 2020. I look forward to talking to you again in 2021. If you'd like to leave any comments, please do so in the comment column. I'm really interested in your feedback. And thanks again for your attendance. I hope I haven't run over too much. Thanks a lot.